For the last years, I've been mainly working with film. In film, I feel that a lot of different practices that used to be separated finally come together, such as writing, performance, music, photography, creating events, and weaving communities together through social activism. In my work, I often portray people that work in the shades of the law and that invent new systems away from capitalism. They try to usually take risk, but in a very positive and socially engaged way. I find their road usually very inspiring, of like how somebody chooses for a path that is less known and what kind of psychological, emotional and spiritual impact that has on their way of navigating through life, their ideas, their thoughts, their feeling, and how they share that. I like to use the image as a radical way of envisioning the future. So I like to hear people's stories, people's real life experiences, but combine them with with a creation that's not really manifested yet, that comes out of my imagination or out of a collective consciousness that I tap into, and which is a possibility, a manual for a future to come, or just a potential to dream away on. The playful aspect of filmmaking is really much more important to me than any conventions of definition of what a film is, or in which genre, or how long the film should be, and if they should present it in like this way or this way. I think in general the film industry is really old-fashioned, and with all this new technology coming up that this new generations is living with, like being so intertwined with the screen, it's really necessary to like think about the reinvention of the moving image. I present the films in installations because I like to break away from the object-subject style of the white cube and engage people physically in what they're actually seeing. And the rooms are an extension of the message and the tone and the vibe and the mood of the film, and in that sense a sensory experience, but also people are encouraged to relate to each other in different ways through their bodies, because the proximity of space is much closer, or you're encouraged to use your body in a different way, so your brain and body is already differently wired, and in general just encourage a kind of playfulness. The portals are important points of transition also. Are you willing to step through the portal to the other side? Implicitly, this show speaks about dying in the sense of the moment, the self, the material world, the flesh, but also the philosophical ideas or maybe even feelings. We are now living in a world that's rapidly changing, and it's for me important to think about what we're going to take along to the new phase and what not, and therefore often we have to sacrifice something of ourselves, which can be a form of a small death, and this death can be pleasurable or painful, and in how I see it, it's good to embrace both. I feel in order to stay pure and precise and aligned with the ideas and visions that I have, and in order to stay generous, it's an absolute important aspect to embrace my own death every once in a while in my lifetime. And the closer I live with death, the more alive I am. The show speaks about elves, but elves could be easily replaced as non-self, or oneself, or group self, or they self. I mean, who we are anyways is an illusion, so our whole way of seeing the world is a hallucination. It's a projection of how we are conditioned, of our thoughts, of our feelings. So in that sense, our identity is fluid, and it's a construction, it's a concept. Everybody has already their own fantasy about what they are themselves. The emphasis on the work is about rearranging structures of power, mainly also by taking ourselves as humans not too serious and seeing where we project negativity on others, because I am as much part of you as you are part of me, and this space of intimacy I find relevant and important to address and to conceptualize in a different way. I believe the intimacy landscapes between humans but also between other living beings and people is eroding, leading to isolation and an epidemic of loneliness. And somehow I hope these films address a kind of playfulness with ourselves and our closest relatives, blood or spiritual, around us, and that we invest in that, and that most things which are important for us as humans are actually for free.